Hi traders, welcome back to the FXE YouTube channel. Yesterday the longs played out as I was hoping, but unfortunately they didn't play out the way I explained in yesterday's video, but I'll explain why. So for today's video, I'll go over yesterday's price action and then give some ideas of what to look for today. But first, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get into it. So first, for the fundamentals, we have jobless claims early in New York session and Powell speaking late in New York session. On the charts, so if we go to the yields, you can see 10-year and 30-year have come down quite a bit now. We finally got a shift on the 30-year. 5-year is currently lagging, but I'm guess we'll eventually see continuation. But for all of them, we may see a pullback before we see further continuation. Now, quick look at the majors. So for the majors, what you can see is once again AU and NU are starting to lag. They're pushing deeper to the downside with much less signs of pushing back up, especially AU. NU on the other hand, it's starting to break trendline liquidity, so having this consolidation now, so potentially can start pushing up from here. EU on the other hand is clearly the most bullish out of the majors. You can clearly see the signs of strength that it's having over the others. It's breaking all kinds of structure while the others haven't yet, and some of them are far from it. So let's move on to DXY. So starting with yesterday's price action. So yesterday's video was probably sometime around this area. So we continued up and eventually created a higher high. Not surprised about this, to be honest, because DXY tends to do a lot of manipulation. And I actually mentioned that it was one of the scenarios that could happen. But then we had a shift, and then you can see we had an aggressive push to the downside. We broke the 4-hour low. So this is a 4-hour shift and a break of structure. And what else can we see? So the previous 1-hour fair value gap, the big one here, well, it's holding for the time being. We're currently in a fair value gap right now from the push down. There's also a 4-hour fair value gap just above that, which has a 1-hour inversion fair value gap coming from the left. There's also another 1-hour fair value gap further above. This area of demand that we had on the left, where we reacted off of the first push down, it's clearly acting as strong support for the time being because we haven't broke through it yet. And we created liquidity with these equal lows that will surely get targeted at one point or another. And if we go to 15-minute, so on the 15-minute, we're currently consolidating in this range right here. And this has happened, well, we've been doing this consolidation ever since PM session yesterday. Oh, and just a quick note, if I say AM session or PM session, I'm referring to New York session. And let's see what else. So we're not really seeing so much signs of strength in either direction for the time being. It's just consolidation. I'm hoping this is redistribution for the next push down. Some of the scenarios I can see is we could potentially reverse from here. And if we do, I'm guessing we'll probably see a sweep of the lows before pushing back to the upside. But to be honest, this is not the scenario I want to see, but it is a possibility. It could even just come down here to the extreme. Maybe sweep these lows, come into this extreme, and thereafter reverse and push to the upside. If we look at continuation, so definitely need to see some sort of manipulation. I was actually looking at this area as a potential area of manipulation, but to be honest, I think the timing is a little too early for any move to happen. Oh, who knows? It's about an hour before Frankfurt open now, so potentially this could be the last manipulation of this high before continuation to the downside. And then we have some highs here, which could also act as areas of liquidity for price to reverse from. And then one other area I'm looking at and considering is breaking this high, coming back into the 4-hour fair value gap, tapping into the inversion fair value gap that should act as resistance now, and then reversing and coming to the downside. So all in all, I'm bearish on DXY. You see the yields coming down, and they look like they'll continue to come down further. As such, DXY should eventually follow. Fundamentals are also aligning with it, and we're in a important POI. So we had this huge imbalance that was created on the way down, came and nearly filled all of it, and then you can clearly see it's reacting in this area. And looking at the way that we broke, wasn't a clear break, it was just by a few pips that we broke below. It's just a few pips below that we broke, and I don't know, it just makes more sense for this to be distribution and eventually see continuation to the downside than reversing and pushing right back up. But you never know. But my preference is looking for DXY to come down and looking for continuation longs on EU. Now moving on to EU. So I'm on the hourly time frame right now. So we were somewhere around here from my last video, and you can see we continue to push to the downside. So this is what I was expecting, but I didn't anticipate the breaking of the lows, and that's really unfortunate because I clearly mentioned it in DXY, but that was more because it likes to manipulate. But should have anticipated that potential scenario for EU as well. So looking at where price came into, so yesterday's push to the downside, it was filling the daily fair value gap and going deep into the 1 hour fair value gap. And you can see to the left, we also had a breaker block here. So this is a 15-minute breaker block. I'll show you a little more clearly when I get onto the 15-minute time frame. And this is where we had the reaction yesterday. And then, sorry, not yesterday, the day before yesterday. And then yesterday when we came down even deeper, sweeping the previous lows, having a reaction and a shift, you can see that once again we came into this breaker block and it was holding strong, and thereafter we had the reversal with the aggressive push to the upside. And this aggressive push to the upside, you can see it broke structure. So this is essentially a 4-hour shift now. We also broke the demand or fair value gap that was holding from the left, so we went right through that. And for the time being, the fair value gap that was acting as resistance the day before yesterday is currently acting as support. So potentially this may hold, and we have this consolidation or potentially accumulation, and then or reaccumulation, sorry, and then we sweep the lows and thereafter aggressively push to the upside. Just having a quick look at Dixie. Yeah, Dixie is pushing up quite high, so this is clearly an area of liquidity that looks like it just swept. And the areas to monitor now is the area right here, this high, and this inversion fair value gap. Okay, so sorry, wrong chart. So going back to EU. So yeah, my expectation now is hopefully this is reaccumulation. We do some manipulation and then continue further to the upside. We have some equal highs right here. So those are obviously the next target, but what I would like to see is continuation, and this is not sell side liquidity, this is buy side liquidity. So eventually continuation and going for this buy side liquidity. And you can see we are in an hourly fair value gap that's acting as support. The 4-hour inversion of fair value gap is also acting as support. And we have another 1-hour fair value gap below that potentially EU could go to, but my preference is I'm hoping that this area holds, and then we shoot up from here. And then if we go on the 15-minute time frame, so just quickly on the left, so you can see this 15-minute candle was our 15-minute breaker block, and this is and just so we're clear, this is from the previous high. And then just on the right, you can see it was supported here where we had a reaction, our initial reaction the day before yesterday, and it was also supported here where we had the reversal. So yesterday continuing down, you can see we had a shift in this area, pull back into the extreme. Thereafter, aggressive move to the upside. You can see I entered a long here and I'm still holding it. I took 50% off at this high, and the rest I'm holding because I want to hold it to this high, or maybe even this high. For now, my take profit is set to this, but I may move it up here if we get an aggressive move later on. And then I also entered another scale in here. So after seeing a clear shift and break, there was a reaction from this high. And then you can see we had some consolidation in this area. And then on one of the last pullbacks, I entered a long. And this one I actually closed. So my first TP was up here. When it started consolidating, I just closed it, mainly because I saw that EU may come back for a deeper pullback, and if it does, I'll likely be taken out. So it didn't really make a lot of sense to hold it when this is more likely to go if we get a deeper pullback. So I mentioned the areas to watch out for on the hourly, but there's also a 15-minute demand here as well. This I'm hoping is the area that we may go for, but at the same time you can see it may have just targeted this one, and this potentially could be the area where we reverse from. But I'm not looking to enter trades at this time. I'm not going to enter until at least Frankfurt Open, but probably wait for London, because London has been Frankfurt has been more hit and miss, whereas London has been a little more accurate in terms of entering trades and expecting them to play out. And then I think I mentioned the hourly fair value gap that we're currently reacting off of. So this is acting as resistance, and we do have buy side liquidity here as well as another fair value gap above. But as I said, my preference is seeing this as reaccumulation, so consolidation in this area, taking out internal liquidity, and then shifting and then pushing to the upside. But honestly, I would prefer if we see the highs go first. So maybe this is the sweep that it was targeting, and if that's the case, then I would like to see the highs go, and then maybe a retest, and then after that continuation. So maybe this happens from now until Frankfurt, and then London we get a pullback before pushing to the upside. That would be ideal. But at the same time, we do have more resting liquidity below, and we also have this 15-minute demand that could act as an area that price could retrace to and shift before pushing to the upside. And just to be fair, there's also a 1 hour fair value gap, more to the downside, but what I'm hoping is this one acts as a breakaway gap and we don't go anywhere near it. So just to sum up, I'm hoping for long setups. That's not to say you can't go down, and I will take a short setup if that is what price action shows me, but my preference is to take continuation trades. Structurally, it makes more sense to continue up now. It's just a matter, at least for me, it's more a matter of from where. So that's what we need to watch, the price action to give us clues on where we can enter longs or potentially enter shorts if this is what price action is showing us. Anyways, that's it for today's update. Hopefully you guys found some value in today's video, and if you did, a like and a subscribe would be appreciated. Good luck trading today, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.
Black Swan.